Welcome to In Focus with PeakCare Queensland. My name is Lindsay Wegener and I'm the Executive Director of PeakCare. In this episode of In Focus, our member agencies are invited to focus on, firstly, the governance arrangements that have been put in place to guide the range of reforms arising out of the state government's response to the Carmody Child Protection Commission of Inquiry, and then to focus on who you might nominate to join what PeakCare is calling a reforms network, a network of representatives from our member agencies with whom PeakCare can regularly liaise and consult about the program of reforms. As described in an earlier video produced by PeakCare called The Road to Reform, the governance arrangements set up to guide the planning and implementation of the reforms consists of, firstly, some statewide forums, including the Child Protection Reform Leaders Group, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Service Reform Project Committee, the Family and Child Reform Stakeholder Advisory Group, and various subgroups and project teams that may be formed from time to time under the umbrella of each of these forums. Secondly, some regional child and family partnership groups, at least one per region, and in some cases more. And thirdly, within each region, a number of local alliances. PeakCare recognises that there are some understandable variations emerging between regions in the ways in which they are organising their regional and local forums, including the number of forums they are setting up, the membership of these forums, and the respective roles and responsibilities each will perform based on factors such as the local geography and demographics, the current location of non-government and government service infrastructure, and very importantly, your local knowledge and preferences about the ways in which the governance and planning of the reforms will work best. Notwithstanding this understandable level of variation in the regional governance arrangements, PeakCare is convinced that without clear understandings being formed about the respective roles and responsibilities of the central, regional and local forums, the program of reforms will not proceed smoothly or well. Such an ambitious program of reforms will also require highly effective communication channels between these groups and some clearly defined points of contact in order to ensure a purposeful exchange of information and the maintenance of meaningful feedback loops. Without these clearly articulated conduits, PeakCare perceives that there is a real risk of unnecessary duplication or waste of effort and the potential for these groups to be sometimes working at cross purposes. During this period of the governance arrangements being refined and settling into place, PeakCare is keen to establish a reforms network with nominated representatives from each of our member agencies. This network will be used to disseminate, collect and exchange information and advice. In particular, PeakCare wishes to make use of the network to gather opinions and facilitate constructive discussion and debate amongst our member agencies about matters relevant to the reforms. Representatives of our member agencies may make use of the network to refer certain matters to PeakCare for follow-up with some of the central forums. PeakCare may similarly make use of the network to bring certain matters to your attention so that you can raise and deal with these in the regional and/or local forums. Member agencies are now invited to think about and choose one or more representatives to join the reform network. In identifying the most appropriate persons to join the network, you are invited to consider the role these persons will be performing and think about the attributes they will need in order to perform this role well. Those you select to join the network should be persons upon whom PeakCare can absolutely rely to distribute information both within their own organisation and their local networks, and where required, facilitate the collection of information and advice from both of these sources. This means that they will need to be people who hold sufficient seniority within their organisation to appropriately bring matters to the attention of persons performing executive, managerial, policy making and/or practitioner roles. They will also need to be people who are very well connected with interagency networks at either a regional or local level. They should be people who are able to authoritatively express opinions with the approval of their organisation, or at the least, they should be people who know the limitations of their authority and who have the ability to obtain the necessary approvals to state their organisation's opinion if and when required. They should be people who are or have the ability to become very well versed in the reform agendas, including recommendations of the Carmody Inquiry, who can effectively and collaboratively serve as a sounding board for PeakCare, and who, in performing this role, are strongly committed and able to represent sector-wide interests rather than the interests of their own organisation only. Preferably, the network should include persons who are already or who are about to become active participants in either a regional child and family partnership group and/or a local alliance. Once your organisation has selected one or more persons who fit this criteria, these persons are invited to send me an email addressed to lwegener@peakcare.org.au, indicating that they have been nominated to join the Reforms Network. This email should contain their full name, their position title, the name of their organisation and location of their work unit, their contact phone number and email address. Upon this information being received, the nominated person will be placed in an email circulation group and invited to join a Yammer network. It would be very much appreciated if your nominations could be received as soon as practicable, and preferably by no later than the 4th of August. PeakCare is very pleased about the number of nominations that have already been received and looks forward to receiving many more.